Well, hey there, guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, my method of creating laser engraving files. Well, I have a few bottle openers to engrave on the handles. And for these particular ones, I want them to be custom done. I don't just want lettering engraved on the handles. I want a couple of images placed because I want to personalize them for the people that are getting them. So what I want to do on today's show is show you the method that I go through in order to set up for an engraving file when you're doing something like this. And the methods that I'm going to show you here, you can apply to your projects across the board. Well, the first thing that you're going to want to do is you need to know the dimensions of your engraving area. So I have measured the area on this handle of the bottle opener as to where we are able to engrave. And I've come up with 21 millimeters wide and 65 across. So the very first thing we want to do is we're going to open up Lightburn and we're going to draw just a square, just like this. And up here, we're going to turn off our lock to release the hold on the proportions. And our width, we're going to make that at 65 millimeters. And our height, we're going to make that at 21. And we'll just reduce this so we can see it a bit better. Now, this is the working area now of our engraving. So we know that whatever we engrave needs to be within this area. And if we want, with this highlighted, we can click on T1 down here or T2, either one, and that makes these a tool. In other words, it will not engrave this. It's just a frame. It's just a reference point to allow us to place images inside to know that we are where we need to be for engraving. So I now need an image, and on this particular bottle opener, I want a harmonica. So we're going to go on good old Google, because Google knows all. And we're going to Google harmonica line drawing. And we will click on images to bring up a variety of images of harmonica. Now, I find that line drawings work best because they're traceable. So I kind of like this one here. Once we get this image that we like, we can just right click on it and you will click Save Image As, just like that. And then we can click it on our desktop, and up here we will just title this as harmonica, spelled properly, hopefully. And then we will click Save. So we now need to bring our image of our harmonica into our working area. So what we're going to do is up here, we can see this little part right here, which is a kind of a file folder or a piece of paper with a little arrow on it. That is our import. So we're just going to click on import and it's going to pull up a screen. We're going to go to desktop and we're going to look for our harmonica drawing. And there it is. And it is huge. So we have to do something with this. It's too big. And on top of that, we have this kind of silliness down here at the bottom, which is attached to the image. So first things first, we're going to right click on this image, and right down here at the bottom, we can see trace image. And that is going to bring up an image tracing. The tracing itself is all in kind of that purpley lettering. So this is showing you what it's tracing. And if you're happy with that, you can click OK. But before you do, look right down here. You can see delete image after trace. And you want to make sure that's clicked. And then your image will be removed from your project once it's traced. So we'll just click OK. And there we go. There is our image now. The thing is, because we were working in the tool layer right here, the T1, we don't want this as a tool. We want this as an actual engravable level. So we're going to put it on layer 00. There you go, everything turns black. And as well, the other thing that we want to do, because this is all one image, we're going to go up to the top, click Arrange, and Ungroup. And that will separate all of this. If you click and drag any part of these images now, it's going to really mess things up. So don't touch anything. The way that you can tell if everything is ungrouped and basically on its own is if you click arrange again, and the only option is to group or auto group, you know there's nothing to ungroup and everything now is been separated. So we want to get rid of this bottom stuff here, no problem. Just drag from right to left, making sure that you only incorporate this bottom stuff, and then just click delete on your computer. That took out the box, and now we can go across and take out the lettering. Highlight everything and get rid of it. And there we go. Now we just have this image of our harmonica. However, it's all separate pieces. So we want to highlight it all, come up here again to arrange, and click group. And there you go. Now you have this image of the harmonica. It's a little on the large side though. So we really don't want it that large. So we're going to shrink this down. So up here, you can see that at the moment it's 935 wide and 623 tall, but our lock is still undone. You want to lock those proportions in. And we said that our engraving area was 65 by 21. So we're just going to go with a width of 65 for now. There we go. We'll just zoom in, and there's our harmonica. So here we have our original tool area of 21 by 65. We can see that up here. And here we have our harmonica, which is not going to fit in this area. But if we use this corner rotation tool, we can rotate this just like that. And then because the lock is locked in place, if we click and drag on a corner, it will keep the proportions exactly what we want them to be. It's not going to distort our harmonica. And then we can just drag it over here to our engraving area and shrink it until we're happy with how it looks in that area. There we go. Let me just zoom in a little bit here. And with that, now we have a harmonica line drawing that is engravable on our area of our bottle opener. And we know that it's going to fit in there because our orange layer, being our tool layer, is showing us in a frame that it is going to fit. So if you want to, you can now come up to the top here and click this screen, and it will show you how it's going to engrave this particular line drawing. And if you're happy with that, that's great. I'm not sure about these letters. I'm not sure if I want to highlight those and maybe get those to be an engraving fill to get them to be a little more prominent, possibly even the blues words to be a fill instead of a line drawing. But for now, this is what we've got, and it looks great. So we now want to add some lettering on the other side of our bottle opener. Well, I want to add the text to the back side, but I don't want to change this image that I have here. So the very first thing that I'm going to do is our tool area. We're going to click on that tool area, then right click and duplicate it. That way it gives us another working area to place our text, because we want our text, say the harmonica will be on this front side of the bottle opener, but our text on the back side, and they both have the same working area. So we now have a second tool area to place our text. And all I want to do is I have the text here. We're going to place it in our box area. And at this point, I have it set a height of 5, which I think will work out well for this particular project. So I'm going to add a musical quote. So we'll just type out music is the tool to express life and all that makes a difference. Just like that. We will add quotation marks here. And now we have our lettering. So I'm just going to bring this over into our box. We can see it doesn't really fit. So we're going to drag it until it does. Just like that. And if we want to at this point, if we want it centered on our working area, we can just drag from right to left, highlighting everything. And up here at the top, you can see this section right here. Just click on it and it will center right here, align vertical center. And there we go. And if we want our harmonica centered, we can do the exact same thing. So align vertical center, and there we go. That is centered now as well. But I want to add the name of the person who did the quote, but I want it smaller and I want it off to the right of the quote. So in order to do that, I'm actually going to place another layer there of font. And there you go, Blast from the 80s for those who might remember. That quote is from Herbie Hancock. And we're going to take this lettering now, and I'm going to shrink it a little bit. So we will just, that's a little too much. All right, I'm going to do a custom. So we can just put this in here. I'm going to say at 3. And that looks good to me there at 3. And we can place it wherever we want now. And I want this over here. All right, there we go. Now, here's the thing. This is now engraving a little high on our engraving area. So what I want to do is dragging from left to right. If you drag from right to left, you will incorporate everything that box touches, even if you don't incorporate the image image. So I'm going to group all my letters together. And now I'm going to right to left and incorporate everything. And we can center this now top to bottom on the horizontal center. We've already centered it vertical center. And there we go. There is our quote now set up in the center, both vertically and horizontally. But we don't want this to be a line engraving. So we're going to click on the words. We're going to change our engraving layer to a different one other than the harmonica. And we're going to have it as a fill, just like that. And now I've also changed this up here, by the way, this harmonica as a fill. So if we click our preview, we can see what it's going to look like with this harmonica now being filled in a little better, giving a better 3D effect, and this lettering now all being nice and solid. So we are going to use the X tool F1 to engrave this. Before we do though, to make it a little simpler, we are going to align all of these things here together. We want to make sure that our tool layer and our letters are both combined. So we'll click Arrange and Group. We want to make sure that this tool layer, just like this, and our harmonica are grouped together. And now if we highlight everything, we can now align them both on their centers, just like that. And I know it looks strange, but this is going to help us in our setup of engraving. So let's get the X tool F1 now that we have this set up, and I'll show you how to engrave this. I have a few more designs I need to do, so I'll get them done, and then I'll come back and see you after that. So when you have multiple engravings on the same type of item, guys, it's best to make some kind of a jig, and it doesn't have to be anything fancy. You can see here that I just have a little piece of maple. I have a little piece of maple on this side to give me a square end, and I actually have a little tiny piece of acrylic here because these are not square. It is slightly smaller on this end than what it is on this end. There's a very tiny taper. Not enough to really notice with your eye, but there's enough to notice that if you engrave something on here, it's going to look crooked. So by making this little jig, you can very easily place your item just like this right in the corner. I also have this double-sided taped to the base of the F1 laser, by the way. So we have it here now. We can just sit it right in the corner, make sure that it's flush at the back end here and flush along this side. That little piece of acrylic will bring it out just enough for us. That little red dot right there, that is the center of our engraving. And if I just click frame, I don't know if the camera is showing it, but that little blue light is showing us where the engraving is going to go. So I'm going to go through the openers that, or the bottle openers that I have to engrave, and I'm going to basically engrave all of the lettering on each one of them. So guys, the following little clip here does have flashing lights. And if you are someone who is affected by that, please do what you have to do to protect yourself. So we'll just come over here to the computer and click start, and we'll let the words engrave, and we'll do it on all 4 of our openers. And we can see that by using a system there where it provides repeatability, you get exactly the same engraving on both. And as long as you take your time with your setup, then each one after that will be exactly the same. So make sure you get it right the first time. So I'm going to engrave the rest of the images on the other side, and then I will show you at that point what we end up with. So you can see that by using a simple little jig in the laser, you can get very repeatable results, having each one of the engravings exactly where you want them. And also by using that trace tool, you can use any digital image that you can find online. I find that line drawings work best, and you can use the trace function and then the fill function to really get in there and get some fantastic images. So those look great. Anyway, hopefully that'll help some of you guys who may be struggling out there with how to make your own laser engraving files. And there you have it. One of my methods, just one, of how I make laser engraving files, I guess we'll call them. Guys, this was used in Lightburn. However, if you are using XCS, which is Xtools Creative Space, which is the software designed to go with the F1 laser, it has the exact same function of trace. So you can still do the same thing. You can still trace that image and get an engraving file from that. The one thing you want to keep in mind is really how you engrave it, because once it traces it, it may just be a weird looking double-edged line drawing. So you may have to change the type of engraving from line to fill. And that will fill in those lines and make them darker, almost like the dark lines of a coloring book. But in an engraving, it looks great. Now, there were a few places here where I wasn't really fond of what was happening. And on the melodica bottle opener, the black keys of the keyboard were actually, well, because it did a fill engraving on the whole tracing, it left the middle of those melodica keys white. And I didn't really like that. So I had to basically ungroup everything and then select the middle of every one of the black keys, so the sharp or the flat keys, and then make them another layer and make those ones a filling engraving. It seems like a bit of a runaround to be able to do it, but sometimes you got to finagle it a little bit to get the results that you want. This stuff isn't rocket science. And really, all you need to do is play with it a bit. And if it's not doing what you want it to do, then you need to tweak a few things. You don't have to get too deeply into it. You can see that all I did was Google an image, find one that I like, import it into the software, trace it, and then play around with my settings and the size of it to get it where I wanted. Those orange squares that we made that were the same size as our engraving area on the bottle openers, that tool function, the T1 and T2, those are phenomenal because what they do is they don't provide any options for engraving. So there's no way that you can accidentally engrave that square. It does give you, however, a very clear orange, so it stands out from the rest of your design. It gives you a very clear design area, so you know, without having to frame and look over and check it left, right, and center, you know already that that engraving is going to fit in there. So all in all, the methods that I've shown you here today, they are not solely for the project that I've shown you. They're not solely for a bottle opener. You can apply them to any engraving project that you want to make to put the images that you want onto the projects that you want. So give this one a try. Guys, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. I wasn't really planning on doing a laser show today, but I was engraving anyway, and I thought, I know that there are some of you out there that are new to the laser world and you're kind of struggling with how to get your images onto your projects. So I took the opportunity to bring you along for the ride on this one to hopefully give you a few ideas, at least give you a direction where you could go with this stuff. Guys, if you haven't already, or if you found any part of this video entertaining, you know what? Why not like and subscribe to the channel? We have an amazing audience base, and I'm hoping that you're going to consider becoming a part of it. Guys, I want to thank you so much for tuning in this week. I hope you've enjoyed the content. I hope if you're new to laser engraving, you're going to give some of these methods a try with Lightburn or with XCS and see how they work out for you. I hope that if you're not new to engraving, that maybe you were able to pull a couple little tips out here or there, either on aligning your projects or what have you. But more importantly, guys, I hope you're going to join me again next week when I bring you yet another Alternative Tuesday.